If you are struggling to get started with your private practice and feeling overwhelmed with all the unknown steps of what you need, then today's episode is for you. I'll share the specific things you need to get in place in order to start seeing your first clients.
Hey, Christian therapist, are you craving a counseling career that aligns with your faith and actually supports your well being? Welcome to the Prosperous Christian Therapist Podcast. I'm Kimberly Van Hooser, Christian therapist, private practice owner, and business coach for mental health professionals like you. In this podcast, you'll get practical strategies and faith led guidance to help you build a thriving private practice, one that serves your clients well and makes an impact for the kingdom of God. So, what are you waiting for? Grab your notebook and join me for today's episode.
Welcome back to the Prosperous Christian Therapist Podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly Van Hooser. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist in the states of Colorado, California, and Arizona, the owner of a Christian counseling private practice here in Colorado, and I'm a business coach and mentor for Christians working in the field of mental health. I help therapists create a private practice that aligns with their values and their faith and makes an impact for their clients. I do offer one-to-one coaching and support. Right now, I'm running a special for a 60-minute coaching session called Optimize Your Practice. During the 60 minutes, I'll assess 6 different areas of your private practice, and I'll help you know what you're doing well and identify specific action steps for continued growth. At the end of our time together, I will do a faith-led activation and also provide you with that action plan so you know what steps to take forward. If you're interested in booking a coaching call with me, go ahead and shoot me an email. I'll leave my contact information in the description below. In today's episode, I'll be discussing what you really need to get started in private practice. I think it can feel very overwhelming before you've begun to just rip off that band-aid and get going in your private practice. And that can lead to a lot of stagnation where you might have been wanting to start a private practice for quite some time. But as you notice, the days and the weeks just keep passing by and you still haven't done anything. So today I'd like to share just kind of the specific things that you need in order to open your doors and really start seeing clients. The first thing you need to do is to form your business entity. You can be a sole proprietor, an LLC, or an S Corp. Make sure you know your state laws regarding business entities, because I do believe in California, you're not allowed to be an LLC when you are working as a therapist. So just be sure to check in, do some research to make sure you're legally selecting an appropriate business entity. I started out as a sole proprietor because that was the easiest and least expensive way to get started. The downside to being a sole proprietor is you don't have any protection. If your business were to be sued, your personal assets could be taken away from you. When I first started, I didn't have assets really, so it wasn't too much of a risk for me to start as a sole proprietor. But later on down the road, I did choose to move to what's called a PLLC. So that's a professional limited liability corporation. This offers just a little bit more protection. If for whatever reason my business were to be sued, then they couldn't seize any of my personal assets. They can only take what basically belongs to the business. Some states have 2 types of LLCs. There's the PLLC or the LLC. The P stands for professional, and that is designated for anyone who holds some sort of professional license. So as therapists, since we have to register with the state, for a professional license. Generally speaking, if there's an option for a PLLC, that's what you'll want to select. You could also choose to incorporate, and that is generally if you are located in California where you're not allowed to have an LLC as a therapist, or if you are making enough every year in order for it to be a tax strategy. Sometimes you can save in taxes if you choose to incorporate versus choosing an LLC. Just make sure that you have done a little bit of research, consult with a small business lawyer if you need to. I honestly just found the information I needed on Google back when I first got started and talked to some professional colleagues before I made my decision. Next thing that you'll want is to get an EIN number. So do that regardless of if you're a sole proprietor or an LLC or corporation. You can just use your social security number if you're a sole proprietor, but it's just good practice, I think, to have an EIN because you're going to have to use that on paperwork. Sometimes you have to use it on super bills for clients, and it just will protect you from having to share your social security number. Make sure that when you file an EIN that you do so through the IRS website directly. If you Google file an EIN, there's a lot of companies out there that will charge you something like $300 to process that filing, but it's very, very easy to do yourself. You'll need to register your business with the Secretary of State, and generally you'll pay a filing fee of something like $50. Then make sure that you know whether or not you need a business license to run a private practice in your state and county. When I lived in California, I did not need a specific business license for the state, but I did need to have a business license per the county that my office was located in. So just do some research to see what your state and county requires. As a disclaimer, remember that I am not a lawyer, so it's very important for you to make sure that you consult with someone who has a law degree and is skilled in small business, and to do your own research to know what is required within your county and your state, rather than just taking everything I say as applicable to where you're located. Once you have the legal side of things set up for your business, I do highly recommend that you get a separate business bank account before you start seeing clients. This is just really important in order to stay organized and to create a lot less chaos come tax season. You'll be able to much more easily track what your business income is and also your expenses. So I would recommend having at least a business checking account. And then I also think it's a good practice to have a business credit card so you can have all of your business expenses tracked on that one credit card. I use Chase Banking. I have a business checking account and also one of their business credit cards. I also do my personal checking with Chase. So I like that I can just transfer twice a month. I transfer my owner's draw from my business checking account straight to my personal account. So it's like my paycheck. So I'll go ahead and link my referral code for opening a Chase business account in the show notes below. I think you get some sort of credit or deal if you are to use that. But yes, I would highly recommend making sure you get a business banking account set up as soon as possible, just so you don't have to worry about rushing to do that once you finally get a client and start generating some income. So once you have your legal setup and your business banking account, next you'll have to make sure that you have what you need in order to get started with clients. You'll want to get set up with an EHR, which stands for Electronic Health Record. This is something like Simple Practice or Therapy Notes is another one, where basically you'll be able to send all of your consent documents to a client. They'll be able to complete those. You'll store all of your notes in your EHR for every single session. You'll generally also be able to collect payment through your EHR. I use Simple Practice and have been pretty happy with it. That's where I collect credit card payments. I store all of my notes, and then I also use that as my telehealth platform. So that one can be a little bit more expensive than some of the other platforms out there, but I do find it to be the most user friendly, and it's been worth it for me to have. I'll go ahead and leave a link in the show description below if you're interested in checking out Simple Practice, but feel free to do some research and check out some of the other EHRs out there as well. Within your EHR, you'll be able to create an informed consent document that you'll be sending to your clients, because that's another piece that you need to make sure you have all of the forms and documents that you will want and need clients to complete prior to seeing you for session. So for me, I generally send the informed consent, and then I also have a general background questionnaire. I collect their credit card information before I see them for a session. And then just be aware of any other legal documents or forms you might be required to have your client sign. You will also need to have an email and phone number for your clients to reach you at, and especially for referrals to get a hold of you. For my email service, I use the HIPAA compliant version of Gmail, which is either called G Suite or Google Workspace. I forget what they changed the name to. You'll also need a business phone number. For that, you can use something called Spruce. You can use Zoom. Just make sure that you are following any sort of confidentiality requirements or HIPAA compliancy that you need to be aware of. And I think it's best practice in general to not allow clients to use email or text messaging as a means of communication for therapeutic content. So for my clients in my informed consent, I have a policy on text messaging and email, and I let them know that whatever they share in email or text message, it's harder to protect their confidentiality, and that I only use that for administrative or scheduling purposes. You can get a free phone number using Google Voice. However, in my opinion, that seems a little bit unprofessional. Whenever I've called a Google Voice number, it will say, like, please state your name, and Google Voice will try to connect you. And so your clients will be aware that you're using a free Google Voice number. They might not care about that. You might not care, but for me, it always came across as slightly unprofessional. So I would probably invest the small monthly amount for a business phone number, whether that be through Zoom. I use an app called Sideline for my business phone number, and I've been relatively happy with that. I also recommend having some sort of web presence or online presence before you get started, because I think that just also establishes more credibility. If clients are doing some research and trying to find you, it's going to make you more findable and it makes you look a little bit more established and more credible. So, as soon as you possibly can, I would highly recommend getting a website up and running, even if right at first it's just kind of a simple contact me page, an about page, this is who I am, and then how to get a hold of me for booking. You're also going to need a business mailing address and an office location. So let's talk a little bit about office location and then we'll dive into the business mailing address. If you are choosing to rent physical office space, then hopefully that's going to take care of your mailing address. You can have all of your mail sent there wherever you're required to have an address on file that is made public. Then you can use your business address and you don't have to use your personal address. You're also able to use your physical office address in order to register for a Google business page. I would highly recommend doing that because having a Google business page is going to make you look more credible and then it helps you show up a little bit more on search engine results. So people are going to be able to find you a lot more easily if you're able to register with Google. You cannot use a PO box or like a UPS box in order to have a Google business page, which is why I am a fan of having a physical address location in order to have your mail sent there and to be established as a more legitimate business. Now, if you're planning just to be fully virtual, whether that be for just starting out, or maybe you don't really have a desire to have an in person office location, you're still going to need some sort of business mailing address. You can use your personal home address, but like I said, there are some places that require you to put in an address and then it's going to be made public. And sometimes that's with state licensure boards. When you file your business with the Secretary of State, they will make whatever address you use public. And I don't personally like to have my home address out there for the public to see. So if you are choosing just to do a telehealth location, there are some ways to work around not letting your home address be public information. A lot of office spaces or co working spaces will give you the option to rent out a virtual mailbox. So you can use their address location and have all of your mail sent there. You're still able to list that as a physical business location. So you're eligible for a Google business page. That's not going to cost you as much as renting full-time office space, most likely, but there will be a monthly fee established with that. Another thing that you can do is reach out to some other therapists who have their own office space and their own mailing address and ask if you can pay them a monthly fee in order to have your mail sent to them or to use their address. I personally am still a big fan of having a space where you can technically see clients in person if that's something you're willing and open to doing. A lot of people will skip that because they figure it's a lot of overhead. And generally speaking, if you're just getting started in private practice, office rent could be your largest chunk of your overhead. But there's some ways to make it a lot more affordable rather than just renting out your own private office space that you have full time. I would highly recommend subletting from someone. Generally, most commonly, what I have done is rented office space from someone temporarily, where maybe I've even rented by the hour, and that can be the least expensive sometimes. So if you reach out to a therapist and ask if you can just rent hourly, like 15, $20 an hour or whatever their rate would be, and not have a commitment of a monthly amount that you're paying. Another thing you can do is generally rent like a half day or a full day every single week, and that makes it a lot more affordable than paying for full time space. If you do make the choice to get your own full time office space, then you can always bring on subletters or find other therapists to share with. I have also done this. When I was in Colorado Springs, I rented out a beautiful office space I had just to myself, but then wasn't there very much in person because I like to do a blend of telehealth and in person. So I was able to sublease that out to other therapists. And then my rent was actually very affordable because I was sharing with other professionals. So before you say, like, no, I can't have my own office space, that's way too much overhead, do a little bit of research. Don't be afraid to ask other therapists if they're willing to do some sort of office share or sublease for you. And whether or not you're there in person very often, you can utilize that office address then as your business mailing address and physical office location. If you are choosing just to stick with telehealth sessions only, you're still going to need to make sure that you have a space where you can see clients, where it feels private, where it's not distracting, where it feels confidential. You can always check out episode 21 of my podcast, where I provide tips for how to set your virtual practice up for success, including how to set up your office space virtually in a way that's going to yield the best results for your clients. The one last thing I'm going to mention that you need before you get started with clients is making sure that you have liability insurance. I use CPH and Associates for mine, and that just makes sure that in the case of any sort of legal issues or liability, that you are covered. So that is definitely something that you need to make sure you have in place before you see your first client. I'm hoping that this episode was helpful in making the idea of starting a private practice just a little bit less overwhelming. There are so many moving parts and different pieces, and it's going to take time to get fully flowing and fully established. My website is continuously needing work. I have continuous projects in my private practice, even to this day, where I'm like, oh, I haven't been able to take care of that yet. So just prepare yourself mentally that it's always going to be a work in progress, but don't let that hold you back from taking the specific steps forward in order to start seeing your clients and be able to open those doors. There are people out there who are needing help, who are looking for a therapist just like you. You have something really good to offer the world. So don't let fear hold you back. Don't let overwhelm hold you back. Make a to do list and start checking off those tasks that need to happen in order for you to be able to offer your services to the world and to offer yourself to the people that God has for you to help. It can feel scary and intimidating, but just remember that you're not alone. I'm happy to walk through this journey with you. If you need any sort of mentorship or support, you can go ahead and join my free Facebook community that's full of other Christian therapists who are either established in their private practice or haven't even started yet. But there's weekly Q&A and resources for support. And if you need any direct one-on-one support or mentorship from me, please don't hesitate to shoot me an email at kimberly@kimberlyvanhooser.com. I'll make sure that I leave all the resources I mentioned in the description below. I'll link Simple Practice. I'll link my Chase Business Banking account referral code, as well as my email address in that Facebook group. Thank you so much for listening today. If you have a second and haven't already done so, please go ahead and leave a review for me on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever platform you're listening on. That will really help me out and help other therapists like you find the show. Looking forward to having you with me next time. If you found value in today's episode, would you leave a written review on Apple Podcasts? It helps other faith-led clinicians like you find the show. And don't forget to join my free Facebook community, Start and Grow Your Private Practice as a Christian Therapist, where you'll join other clinicians for encouragement, accountability, and free tips and support. See you there.